Okay, I'm going to try and organise my window again for live stream. So let's have a look at some of Judit Polgar's games on this Friday evening. So Judit Polgar, I'll just say, okay, restarting. Okay, I've got the chat on the right, 5 viewers so far. Okay, let's go to the live stream room. Where's the rooms? What am I doing? Ah, it's on the left. Okay. Live stream room. Okay. Hi all. Okay. I've got a bit. Oh, just make room for the chat window on the right. Okay, let's get on to game. I'll make this reasonable size for the board. So if you guys want to ask questions, torture me with difficult questions, please do. So there's a few games she had to play against the Cuban #1 Grandmaster to get through to play Zvidler and Peter Zvidler. Okay, so Dominguez was a 2700 Grandmaster, and playing black here. He was black. Let's take the winner's side for all games, just for more fun. So as white, Judit, she seemed to not get much of an advantage from this Sicilian defense position, e5 and bishop e7. Okay, so it was Sicilian defense, and that bishop was immediately parried with bishop. Sorry, soon with bishop e6. But first queen c7, driving it back. Now bishop e6, and okay, so you might think taking on e6 is an idea, and knight g5, but that wasn't used. Maybe queen c8 is sufficient there. So white played queen e2, and black seems to get a very nice game now. Although white was trying to undermine control of d5 by taking on f6, it didn't seem to work out very well. Black seemed to get a better bishop out of all this. This bishop was going to be better than this bishop soon, because this bishop's like blocked in with the pawn on d5. So queen d7 means that bishop d8 to b6 is possible, but also maybe a5 and a4 is also possible. Not sure so much about queen b5. Maybe white would just take, and the pawn is supporting a2. But there's a few other plans implied by queen d7. So bishop c4 with the idea of blocking the c file with b3, but it seems a little bit passive now. Very shortly for white. Knight g5 is an aggressive attempt using the rook, of course, on the third rank. Didn't seem to work out. Black seems to have quite good defensive resources here and can create that battery on f2 soon. So I don't know what you guys think of this so far, but I think white is drifting here. Black's getting a little bit of counterplay on the queen side as well. So both these rooks are active, and this bishop's more active than this bishop, which is not working with the pawns very well. But this bishop's eyeing a very useful f2, as well as supporting potentially e4 and e3. Okay, so knight g4 was a surprise actually to many spectators when I was watching this on chessgames.com. Maybe there's more clinical moves, but it does seem to be quite logical to unblock the f pawn for f5 and then e4 and then maybe e3. So black's following a logical plan here, hitting the knight. But tactically now, after f5, the knight doesn't move, instead rook g3. But Dominguez is not worried about exchanging off knight. He just retreats the knight, and he's still got this advantage of slightly higher quality pieces, particularly the bishops. I don't know what you guys think, but black in this position, to me, seems very, very comfortable here. what do you guys think of this position? If you look, this rook on the third rank, you know, isn't really as dangerous as a rook just going down like these two, because it's not really doing much on g3. Furthermore, you know, e4 is looking dangerous with e3 as an idea. So actually now, okay, so what happened now? Rook d3 and rook c7 gives some flexibility to that rook, so it can either come to a7 or well, I think that's the main idea, to just the double on the a file. Okay, and after bishop d4, forcefully getting a pair of rooks off. So yeah, black looks more coordinated, yeah. Okay, so even though there's some simplification, black's maintaining an edge here, and it's quite annoying for white to try and defend this. And Judit is soon going to slip up actually. After this rook e3, there's a critical blunder coming up, which it's difficult to play with the white pieces in this position, mainly because, you know, this threat of rook e1, and then there's no arrows on this, but whoops, oh dear, what have I done? Close that. Rook e1 and then rook g1 is really dangerous. Zenex writes, maybe white has the chances with the passed pawn. It's very difficult because of rook e1 really and rook g1. And there's an immediate blunder here. Actually, to try and stay in the game, the queen has to stay on this rank to protect against queen g5 to h5. And what happens here, the queen is evicted from f4 after this blunder very soon with b4. The only move to stay in the game apparently was bishop d3 here. So that if a move like bishop e3, the queen could come to c4. But now there's like a forced mating sequence here after bishop e3. It's dislodging the queen away from you know, this square, which means queen g5 is going to be very handy for a vicious mating attack here. So the game is very shortly decided now after check and queen g5. The very serious threat of queen h6 is impossible to parry. So that's how she lost that first game. That was it. She resigned here. She's faced with a menacing threat. But let's do an overview and summary of that game. So she got a bit outplayed on the white side here, and it was a bit worrying because Dominguez is over 2700 FIDE. So a mighty plan, and she hasn't played too much in recent years, so it's great to see her back. But this game, I was a bit concerned at white's play. She seemed to be outplayed in this particular game. But once the position was passive, it's easier to go wrong. See, she was faced with e3 here, hence f3 by the way. But still slightly worse because black's got entry points on e3 and e1, as well as better grip on the center. These major pieces around the key central squares provide, you know, menacing threats all the time, like queen e4. So, you know, that was tried to be parried, but white is still, you know, can't handle these entry points, and so b4 was the final straw. But yeah, let's check, you know, her comeback game now. So, which was 112 moves, and I was trying to do this. I was trying to annotate this, but I gave up because these games wear me out on annotation. Actually, look at this, 112 moves. So I don't know how we can discuss this game except by skipping large sections of it just to show the major plan. This is so one of their long games. She had to win this game not to be knocked out. Okay, so should we have a look at this game? Does anyone want to try it? It's a huge game actually. It's 112 moves. Who wants to go over this, or shall we just go over the shorter games? Cop out. Shall we just breeze through this? Shall we? She was black. Okay, I can flip the ball by clicking on D7. Okay, let's just breeze through it. So as black, she played the Sicilian, and with an early queen b6 actually, which is interesting because I'm usually playing Sveshnikov, you know, knight f6, knight c3, e5. But to play queen b6 is making use of the knight on c6 actually. That's an interesting move, queen b6. I don't know how many of you have played that. So it's driving the knight back. I think Ivanchuk has played this with some success as well. I think it provides some improvement sometimes over the sort of Sicilian positions you might get in the Scheveningen. But it seems to be transposing into something very familiar. But the queen goes back now to unblock the b pawn. So b5, bishop b7, b4, those sort of plans are coming in just to put more pressure on e4 and to use the c file. So that's why sometimes the Sicilian seems easy to play actually, because of that semi-open c file. You can always try and exert either more pressure on the c file or more pressure on the diagonal, particularly e4, and combine, you know, both of those ideas. I think later that's how she won the match in the Sicilian anyway. She gave up the centre counter, but we'll find out that later. But here it's dangerous, of course, for the black king here. And in this position actually she plays a very provocative move actually, h6. And of course many people will be tempted just to rip apart the black king here by sacking a bishop, and that's what Dominguez did. He took two pawns for the bishop, but it's a sort of menacing looking attack. So h7 needs to be guarded. f5 blocks you know, h7, and a further piece sack now. Bishop takes f5, bang, because this gives access for knight d5. So it gets really complicated here. What's going on? So takes after knight d5. This is really dangerous now if the queen moves, because rook d3 to g3 I think is a virtually winning attack. So a very nice move, bishop f8. Don't give white too much time to organise. So the queen has got access to g7 now on the check. But this is offering the rook to stave off the attack. So exchanging off queens but offering the rook. So materially black is still slightly better. Ends up with two bishops for a rook here. So exchange of knights, and we're going to end up with two bishops for a rook scenario now. Now here we're only on move 29. So let's try and breeze through this, because it can be wearisome to go for a 100 move game. So basically I think white's plan, he just needs a draw. If he just draws, he's knocked her out. So exchanging off pawns is a logical strategy, and he exchanges off one pawn over there and he's exchanging off another pawn over here. And okay, she's only got one pawn left, but the bishops are coordinating well with the rook, it seems. So c2 is now a subject of attack. It's defended, king's brought up a bit, and it's unclear here how black can force the win actually. Of course if takes, then rook g1 mating. But okay, back to c2, protected. Okay, so she seemed to be drifting around about here. What was the exact winning plan at move 54? It's difficult to tell. So is it bringing the king in? We're going to find out. The king's brought in again over here. Okay. Now this rook wanted to make its way on the a file, so this rook's got to stay on the a file, otherwise there's going to be rook a6 mating, or mating on the a file. So king's gone very far into white's position, but can she really win this position with those two bishops? Okay, c2's really under fire now again, and it's taken here. Okay, so what has white done? Has white blundered? Well, there's this rook here, this annoying move, because now there's an annoying idea of rook h2 check, and what would happen with this bishop if rook c7? So actually it's a simplifying position, rook and bishop versus rook, which is usually a draw theoretically, but somehow she has to win this rook and bishop scenario versus rook. and we've got pure position now, rook and bishop versus rook. Now if you look this up in wiki, the idea is to try and drive the king to the first rank to generate some winning chances, and somehow she managed to do that. Don't know why. Dominguez, his king seemed to be forced back. I've no idea how, really, and I'm not going to comment on these moves. Okay, there's obviously a lot of threats, like rook a1. How does he defend rook a1 with that, so he can play rook a2? What's the threat here? I'm not really that sure. If the rook moves, then rook a1, so the rook must stay, I guess, or the king moves. The rook stays, and now what's the threat? Again, the rook must stay on the second rank. Okay, so the rook's staying on the second rank. How does she make progress in this position? Bishop f1, rook stays. Now, is there another threat that's emerged here if the rook stayed? The rook didn't stay, it threw in the check, so maybe there was a problem. Of course, rook a1 and the bishop's on a2, so the rook gives a check. Okay, so we're working out some patterns here. Now after this, actually, somehow something's been damaged in the position here. The rook now cannot stay on here because of rook a6 mate, and it cannot go like rook a2 because of rook g1 mate. So somehow what just happened? But white has to resign here on move 112 after rook g6. I'm not sure what exactly happened here. Bishop d3, threatening rook a1 again. Rook b3. Now the king went to a2. I don't know if the king went here, it would be draw. So she went there, and now there's actually a threat of rook a6 mate because the bishop's cutting off b1. So king a1, and now this rook g6. So again, if the rook moved off like this second row, then rook a6 is mating. And if it went to h2, I don't know. What if it went to h2? Is that mating as well? Probably. Check. King moves there. Then bishop c4 check, and where would the king go? It'd have to go there, and then rook a1 is mating. So it's difficult to defend, it seems. So she hung on in the World Cup. So then they went to a faster time limit. I don't know if you guys want to do an overview and summary. That was a bit of a long game. So basically she survived this onslaught somehow, getting the queens off at the expense of a tricky, material dynamic imbalance of two bishops versus rook. And despite white getting rid of most of the pawns, he still managed to lose the position, which can be tricky to defend. So yeah, so that was one game I didn't really ever want to video annotate, just breezing through it. So, but it was interesting. It's difficult for sometimes then obviously to defend in that rook bishop versus rook scenario. So persistence there, determination. Let's go on to another game. So we have these other games in the tie break. I'm not sure they're in chronological order actually. So Dominguez versus Judit Polgar. This game 9. I'm not sure what round this is in. Do we know the next game in sequence to check out, or should I just go with this one? This was 51 moves. So Dominguez was white. 51 moves. Does anyone want to go over this, or yeah? Let's see how the cafe's doing. Anyway, everyone bored? Okay. Should we stop there? Just look at those two games. Okay. Okay. Dominguez as white. So he won as white. Alright, so it was a centre counter. I don't know why she was playing centre counter. Actually, she was interviewed about this. I think she wanted it as a surprise weapon of choice. Okay, so some sort of surprise weapon of choice. But we're actually with Queen D6. Scandinavian, of course, as it's known, not just centre counter, Scandinavian. So with Queen D6, I have no idea about the theory, but Dominguez played it very conservatively, just H3 here, and Bishop C4. Very, very simple way of playing it. He's just avoiding this like pin, and he's putting this bishop on a sensitive diagonal with F7 being a sensitive square, and relying on white's very simple trump cards of, I think, the E file and white's possession of E5. And tactically, you know, sometimes there can be disasters on F7, as some of these games show. I think this first one showed a disaster on F7. No, this was the second one. This is out of sequence. Okay, in this one she had played bishop E6 and neutralized that bishop. But still, white seems to have a nasty edge here after G4, pushing her back. And the queen's now passive very soon on E8. So she has been pushed back. But there seems to be a nice blockade opportunity with knight C8 to D6. So I don't know if she wrecked her position later with some overambitious pawn moves. Because at the moment it seemed relatively stable, actually, Black's position. And she fianchettoed the queen now to compensate for the dark square weaknesses. But B5 might be a bit risky. I'm not sure how white would have won these pawns if she had tried to keep solid here. But for some reason B5 and the pawns are you know, like liabilities very soon. But this was a faster like time limit. So Queen F4, and actually the queen is not actually, white is much better, but this queen move is not really directed to the king side actually. It's rather, I mean, Black's played this B5, which has changed the goalposts a bit for these pawns being slightly weakened, so the queen can actually come to munch up some pawns and then come back. That's a simple plan to decentralize, win material, then re-centralize after, and then the pawns will just win in the endgame. So if she just kept solid here, I wonder. So Chess Explained, you're saying white's much better anyway. Chess Explained, FIDE 2400, so I'm going to emphasize your comments. B5 weakens, sure, yeah. So Queen F4, and it's dual purpose, just to munch the queenside pawns. Maybe B5 without B5, maybe A5 and knight A4 to C5. Yeah. Oh, I see. So A5 and knight A4 to C5. So maybe that was the idea. I see. If the knight comes to C5, then E7 is going to drop. That would be very nasty because the rooks are exerting a lot of pressure on E7. So she, yeah, maybe that was what she was worried about here, to play B5. Very good point. Yeah. So it just created a different problem now, unfortunately for Black, that these queenside pawns, although not immediately weak here, now after this knight C3 they're starting to be weakened. A5 is a problem, is a fork on D7 and A5, winning a pawn. So cheekily winning a pawn, and now the queen goes back to munch another pawn, but going via the centre E7 square very soon, not minding Black taking on G4. And so white's comfortably a few pawns up here, 2 pawns up, And also black's king side is not particularly healthy with these dark square weaknesses. So overall this doesn't seem, it didn't seem a very easy game for black at all from the sort of opening strategy compared to the Sicilian defence, because black seemed to be on a back foot from the opening and just drifted into a lost, you know, rook and pawn ending now. Actually, I wonder if I should turn off the chess cube. If I just reject those, and okay, sorry about that. I might need to turn off chess cube. Okay, so rook takes, after this won another pawn basically. So all the rooks are hanging, but if takes, then takes, and 3 pawns up. So she just drifted into a totally lost ending, and she resigned here actually. She's just 3 pawns down. So that was a bit of a depressing game. In the centre counter with Queen D6, it's not a great advert, but I remember there was a point where I thought Queen D6 was getting to be trendy at some point. I don't know why. Maybe in some lines it offers counterplay, but this didn't seem to be much counterplay for black. Maybe white's just played excellently. You know, Rook D3. You know, interesting idea, just to double up rooks on the E file. Weakened dark squares around black's king. E7 under fire. And then just, you know, winning material and coming back to the centre, winning the endgame. He made it look easy, but yeah, it wasn't a great demonstration of the black counterplay. But let's look at another game then. So she struck back, I think, with white. Which game did she struck back as white? I'm not sure what game was next. There's a draw here. I think that was later. Let's choose her as white. It might have been this one. I haven't got the right sequence here. But as white, she was dangerous now against the Sicilian. Much better performance than the other game. Somehow she. So how many moves was this game? This was only 33, a sweet game. So how did she crush him with Sicilian as white? So bishop e3. Oh, sorry, this was the game before the loss I showed. Okay, this was the game before. Sorry about that. Okay. So G4. Wow. That's interesting, isn't it? G4 here. So just trying to get rid of black's central control as well as hack attack. Get rid of that knight. It's sort of about central control as well. It goes to H5. Doesn't mind a little bit of B file pressure. So this attack looks rampant. The queen looks nicely placed, and F6 looks like a threat as well. So this knight is coming maybe to play knight G3 or F4, or where is the knight heading? F6 now. A lot of space. Knight F5. Wow. So, wow, this is quite dramatic, this knight F5. It looks sort of thematic. I suppose if it takes, then Queen H3 and then H5 and then H6 is going to be good. So what did black play here? Was D4 any good? I'm not sure. It's really complicated. Let's see what happens. So is it Queen H3? No, it wasn't Queen H3. It was Knight C3 here. To try and get the Knight to D5. So not even immediately playing Knight C3. Seems like an amazing idea. What? So King H8. Now Queen H3. I wonder in this position F4 how that's refuted if F4 was played. Maybe just Queen F3 would be dangerous to take on H5 next. Or yeah, it's really complicated. So is this H file really dangerous? It probably is now. There's a threat almost of Queen H7, not yet. Queen H6, Rook H4. looks like a threat, or just rook h4. Okay. Just explain right. I saw some analysis for this game. Black was winning at some point, but not at all easy. But this looks really dangerous for h7. So this is an amazing. This is like a barrier for the black pieces to defend these two pawns here. But rook g5 is on, and that's taken. So h7. How is that dealt with? He allows taking on h7, but it's not. Knight d5 first. Now taking. Okay. Queen h6, immediate threats now of knight f6. That has to be parried. But if the bishop moved, then there's queen g5. So it looks like this is big trouble. Now e5 blocking the queen's diagonal. Okay. Check. Interesting. I wonder what other threat was involved here after d takes e. Well, how far are we off? Not far, but why wasn't d takes e5 played here? I wonder. D takes e5. Oh, of course, the queen is protecting h8. Rook h8 mates. Pardon me. Yeah, the queen's not just defending f6; it's defending h8. Right. So that's pretty desperate stuff. This rook g1 then for a check. And then that's it. There's no more checks. Okay, bit of a crush there. Okay, that was an amazing attacking demo with the old bishop c4 systems, which I think was popular in the Fischer era. So there was some sort of new energy about it. With this rook being used, seemingly hemming in the rooks, that looks strange. I don't know what you think. Just explain. The rooks look odd here after rook a1. I don't usually see this. I remember seeing this. But I like the way the pawns were used to sort of barricade. Well, the rooks look much healthier now. They're both logically placed now for this f5. They look perfectly placed now. And this looks like a perfectly logical idea to sacrifice a knight to try and, I don't know, if where's the knight going otherwise? If knight f3, there was queen e4 anyway, so white doesn't want to lose e4. So she protects e4, and she needs to get onto the h file now. So if f4, I assume queen f3. So it looks dangerous to defend this. But okay, what she got for the piece is a dislocation of black's defensive resources, and immediate threats of rook f4 to h4 is the quickest route to get to h7. So black seemingly, using that logically, that g file, but it didn't seem to be enough. Even taking on g5 with check didn't seem to be enough here because of the h7 problem. Black's getting overloaded. This knight's helping in the attacking variations, putting huge pressure on black here, with f6 and h6 and g7 under fire. It needs some straw to break the camel's back, so e5 does that for rook h8 to be mating, serious mating threat. So she made it look easy, but yeah, that was an amazing. That was an amazing attack game. Okay. So it was now there was another game here, a draw with her as white. Sicilian closed. Should we have a look at this draw, or should we skip the draw? Should we have a look at the draw? Does anyone? How many moves is it? Oh dear, 58. Should we skim through the draw? Okay. Okay, Sicilian close is what I usually play, but there's a British Grandmaster that plays this that I drew with recently in 5 minutes, actually, Garwin Jones. It's 2600. He did well with Bishop B5 recently. So Bishop B5 is making sure there's no horrible knight on D4. and now without the sort of bad bishop, white's free to sort of play it like a reverse Dutch sort of classical with a sort of hack attack usually, but f5 blocks a lot of white's attacking intentions. The bishop's now hemmed in by its own pawn. So I think she messed up. When I checked this with an engine, I think a couple of days ago, there was a move here which messes up white's advantage coming up. Here, I think an engine prefers c4 to what was played, which I think Queen e6 now. I think c4 was, I think white was better here and didn't need to play Queen e6. It seems after Queen e6, with the queens coming off, white's advantage was not too much. What do you think about that? So c4 I think was an improvement, but it's not that easy. I mean, e6 is a bit of a liability potentially, and it's going to drop off now. It drops off, but she gets pressure on e7. But then, is the pressure on e7 enough? Because she's a pawn down here. Okay, can she get the pawn back with advantage? So the question is, that's one question. And she's almost like she's still a pawn down. Now equal on pawns, but it's heavily simplified. And then we have a repetition. No, check. Sorry. Where do you want me to stop? Sorry, this is really complicated. Where should I stop? This wasn't a winning position here, was it? Because black's covering d6. Isn't it tricky for white to win this? White could win here in this position. Chess Explained is saying white could win here. Was it here or earlier? So either that pawn was a liability or it was a winning asset. White could win. Okay, let's go back to this position after king e8. So she took on h7 here. Back to rook c6. Oh dear, how far are we going back? Rook c6 here. Rook g6. Sorry? Rook back to, sorry, what move number? Okay, here's the move score. what move number? Should I go forward? Tell me when to stop. Should I go forward here? h4. The rook's attacked. Exchange of rooks encouraged. Bat move 45. Okay, bat move 45. So she got a rook on the 7th. She's got a rook on the 7th. She's got a dangerous pawn on e6. She takes the pawn on e7. She's got a dangerous pawn potentially on e6, past pawn. She plays rook takes h7. Is that blunder? 49. Okay, she takes on a7. Check. Rook g7 at move 46. Was that correct? Rook g7. Check. It seems tricky. Check. And then she loses the e7 pawn. She gives up e7. So it must have been something different to this, yeah? I'm not sure. I can't see it myself. I'm sure engines, they can see everything. But she took on g6 anyway. Okay, so she took on g6, attacking the knight. Yeah. And now, hang on, she lost the rook. Oh no, king e2. So no, she didn't lose the. She attacks the rook, so we get a drawing simplification. Okay, I'm sure there's a win in there somewhere. But it's sort of complex, isn't it? If you say there's a win, there was a win found. There was a win. So it was an interesting closed Sicilian variation. So I'm playing this with bishop c4. Maybe bishop b5 is an improvement on so bishop b5 is an improvement on bishop c4, isn't it? Anyway, so should we move on to a decisive game anyway? So that was complicated. d4. So if knight e6, there's d5. So that pawn was either going to win or be a liability. So knight d6 is possible now because of that pin. She won that e7 pawn. Maybe rook f7, I don't know, rook c7. Yeah. Okay, people on, if I upload this to YouTube later, people can say what the win was, maybe in the comments here for this game. Okay, yeah, so that'll be a challenge for the YouTube readers. So let's go on to viewers. This win with black, shall we? So this is a sweet little win in 31 moves. Was this later in the match? Probably. Oh, rook 45 rook h8 check was the win. Okay, all right. But let's go on to this. So she was black here, and so she repeated. Sorry, pardon me. She repeated this queen b6. 45 rook h8. Do you want me to go back to that just briefly? Okay. Oh, okay. Let's go back. So here e7 was played. We're saying rook h8 check, right? Whoops. Okay. I don't think I can put variation. So rook check, king moves. Oh, I see. Then e7 wins a piece, doesn't it? e7. Yeah, I get it. Rook h8 check, then e7 looks to be winning. Okay, that's cool. That's cool. All right, so we'll go back to this sweet win. Okay, so playing black, she does play the Sicilian defense in this one with queen b6. I think this is towards the end of the match. She really smashes Dominguez in this game. Totally wrecks his position. And it's a combination of c2 and e4, I think. c2 is a target on the semi-open c file, and e4 is a target on this diagonal, and that's like a dream come true, I think, for the Sicilian player, for those two to be under real fire here. So there's pressure on the c file, and White's attack with g4 has a problem with it, that this structure is not so stable once g4 has been played, because of potential disaster here with this structure, as is demonstrated by this game. d5 puts pressure on the structure straight away, and also g5 might even be answered by knight h5 anyway. So this is taking time to open up a line. Even a single line would take time to create an open line, but black's already got a kind of firing line on c2 already from the opening. So she's using that rook to defend e5 here in this variation, ed rook d5. So that rook d5 is protecting e5. Okay, so White's still far away from opening up a line. Bang! Knight takes f3, major tactic. So even though the queen's like black's attacking the queen here, and the structure is weakened now after knight takes f3. Wow. So queen g3. So what on earth is going on? e5. It's chaos. Bishop g2. So she's won a piece now temporarily, equal on material now. But look at all of these pieces. Look at this c file. These rooks are all active. There's no open file on the king side yet. And what's worse is now rook takes d4. Bang. Because now if queen takes b7, there's queen c2 check. And then rook d1 mating. It's a total disaster for white. Rook takes d4. It's crushing. Just opening up this discovery on the queen. So he's lost his queen, basically. So it was a dream come true, the whole game really, because often you want to put pressure on the centre as well as the c-file. And bang. White can't even take here because of queen c1, back row mate. So it's completely lost. It was a blitz game, really. And now there's a threat of bishop takes b2 and queen e1. So that's used. Okay, so he resigns here. Total disaster. Now this really does show how the Sicilian is a fighting defense in the right hands, where the combination of the semi-open c file and the e4 pressure can come together really crushingly, especially with this d5 kind of punch. But the tactic which a lot of players maybe would miss is, well, knight takes f3 is starting to be really unpleasant for white. If knight takes, then either queen takes or rook d1 first. Maybe rook takes d1 first, queen takes, then queen f4. Yeah. And then we've got a problem on this diagonal with this rook being a liability to that bishop. So that would be a total disaster. It was just far too slow what happened here. And in this position, he's forced to put his queen on there to keep material, but this is crushing. Rook takes d4. So on c2 and on d1 now in this variation. So that was really crushing. Yeah. So that was major disaster for white. Even okay, so let's have a look at another. She had to keep winning with white for a while in this match. Did we see this game? I'm not sure we did. As I say, these games are out of sequence, but let's have a look at this game. Another Sicilian defense. We haven't seen this one, have we? Or have we? This looks familiar. Very familiar. Is it following the same path as the other game? We've had a look at this game, haven't we? This is the one we've had a look at. Yeah. Pardon me. Pardon me. Oh dear, oh dear. Oh dear. Okay, this one. Pardon me. Sicilian closed. So she struck in Sicilian closed as well with bishop b5. So this was the winning game with bishop b5. Oh, this is great. I remember this. This is great. Because e5 and the black king's still stuck in the center. Black hasn't got time, it seems, for knight, positional move to exploit f5 here. Yeah, this was the first game of the tiebreak. Yeah, Chess explains this. Yeah, the dynamics are overruling this positional blockade plan here. The king's still in the center means there's tactic which is very, very important here, which wins a pawn for white. Brilliant tactic. Knight takes b5. Well, not so brilliant, but it does win a pawn because it takes rook takes a8. So she won a pawn, and then she was quite ruthless after that. So even though black's got a nice blockade for the knight, bishop e3 and c5 is under fire as well. And now taking on c5 because there's a nasty pin coming in after bishop b5. There's queen b4 pinning. So white's still in control, and currently 2 pawns up. 2 pawns up here. So even though black's got this nice knight, it's not enough. White's 2 pawns up with a very dangerous B pawn. She doesn't mind losing that one to be 1 pawn up, because the B pawn is looking really decisive now. So there's an immediate threat of knight c6 now, and there's a check. She just brings the king to the center here. After rook b6, she just takes and knight d7, and the pawn's queening. This bishop can't help that against that pawn queening. White check, a few pointless checks. Now she just queens, and then there's nothing here. There's no other checks which are useful. Only queen. She's a queen up. So that was just from the opening a total disaster, losing that key pawn. So that was a very interesting bishop b5 Sicilian, where this queen e1 is usually for queen h4 and f5, but here e5 shows its great effect. Also this play of a4 is interesting. Try and clamp down on counterplay. So maybe b5 was premature, didn't need to play b5. If he didn't play b5, then maybe no, I don't know. It's probably b5 was a mistake. In this continuation, he's just losing a key pawn, and then losing another pawn, 2 pawns down, and then she doesn't mind sacking after queen e4, doesn't mind sacking this pawn to get pieces more coordinated for this b pawn push. She only needs 1 b pawn to be decisive, and it's decisive. Okay, so the pawn's decisive basically. Question: why didn't she take on d3 on move 21? b6 here, queen, rook takes d3. I think, you know, rook takes d3, I think is just answered by what did he do? He played h6. Just b7 probably, because the pawn's decisive. I think I'd say b7. You know, I think b7 is winning. Chess explains. Just b7. Okay, so rook takes d3. What's the refutation? He played h6 lang. I see, rook a1. And she could have taken on d3 here. Then b7, and then there's rook a8. I see. Maybe same thing then. You know, if rook takes d3, instead of if rook d3, maybe just rook a1 then, with the idea of b7. Still seems hard. Don't know. I think it's to do with the b pawn anyway. Okay, should we go on to another game? So that showed that b pawn. Here it was frightening. He won with white quite consistently for a while in this match. So again, this center counter was a bit strange choice. So this simple system for white here proved very dangerous for f7 in this game. So I was watching this with Chess Explained at the time of the game actually, and so bishop f7, this tactical shot, which is usually bad to give up 2 pieces for the rook, but in this particular position there's an added factor of, you know, white's rooks blasting down the d and e files for the 7th rank invasion, which is pretty quick here, and the engine move was bishop e5 here, to force the knight back, then I think just taking and then something like b4 to get rook d7 in. So there's a 7th rank invasion, right? Queen e8 instead of queen c8 might have been okay. Yeah. So in this position, yeah, the engine suggestion was queen e8 to minimise white's advantage. I think at the time on WhiteElo, I think I saw queen e8. Well, that was the engine thing, but so f7 was left for this tactic, but he didn't play the most clinical, but he still got a big advantage after in this continuation. Basically, these rooks are a bit menacing. So both rooks are menacing. Still a few tricks, but he starts using his h pawn with decisive effect and overloading the black position, winning more material after h7. This knight's dropping off. So the exchange up and also 2 pawns up. So you'd expect him to be able to win this. After a4, she resigned, in fact. So that was a very tricky for the centre counter. Again, not a great advert for this system, Scandinavian, just with h3 and bishop c4 seems to be an adequate antidote to her surprise weapon. But yeah, she played a few imprecise moves. So f7 shouldn't have been such a liability. So it led to something horrible here. This knight and bishop is difficult to manage against the rook in this position. Impossible, it seems. So this h pawn overloaded black and one more material. Okay, so so that was that one. Then, oh, we've just covered all of these games, haven't we? So should we end there? That's cool. That's 57 minutes. There wasn't any game we didn't touch. No, I think there were 2 5-minute games that might not be listed here. Or is this correct? 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Did she just play 8 games? Sorry, I'll just put that in the thing. Are these the 8 games, or are there any more? Then we've got the games against Svidler. Okay, let's stop there anyway. That was interesting. I hope for everyone that was great. Yeah. Okay, thanks very much. Thanks, Chess Explained, and other people who contributed to this live stream. Thanks very much.